The Grand Council chamber of the Scifi Dominion was silent at first. Cold blue light moved across the tall walls. A wide hologram floated in the center of the room. It showed deep space near the outer border of Scifi territory. Small ships drifted there. Very small ships. Terran scout vessels. They looked thin and light compared to the heavy alien war cruisers parked nearby. Their hulls were simple. Their engines were not bright. Their weapons were not visible. The Scifi commanders stared at the image. Then one of them laughed. "That is humanity," he said loudly. More laughter filled the chamber. Another commander zoomed in on the hologram and counted the ships. 7, he said. Only 7. A third alien shook his head. They send children to guard their borders. The council began speaking over each other. They are weak. They are scared. They have no fleet. They are outnumbered 10 to 1. The Supreme Commander raised one clawed hand, and the room grew quiet again. "Send them a message," he ordered. Moments later, a signal left the alien flagship and reached the Terran scouts. On the hologram, the Terran ships did not move. The alien message was simple. "You are in Scifi space. You are outmatched. Leave now." The council waited. Seconds passed. Then a reply came. Short. Calm. Cold. Message received. That was all. The council chamber filled with laughter again. "They do not even argue," one commander said. "They know they cannot win," another added. But in the back of the chamber, one officer did not laugh. Commander Viral stood quietly, watching the Terran ships. His eyes narrowed slightly. "They are too calm," he said softly. No one listened. On the hologram, the 7 Terran scout ships slowly turned away from the alien fleet. Their engines glowed softly as they began to pull back. "See," a commander said proudly. "They retreat." "Humans are not brave," another added. "They only pretend." The Supreme Commander leaned back in his throne-like chair. "Prepare our fleet," he ordered. "We advance tomorrow. If their scouts run so easily, their core systems will fall even faster." Cheers echoed through the chamber. But Commander Viral kept staring at the screen. The Terran ships were retreating, yes. But they were not rushing. They were not panicking. They moved in perfect formation. Even as they left, their sensors remained active. Their signals were steady. Calm. Controlled. Viral felt a strange weight in his chest. "Supreme Commander," he said carefully, "we should study them more." The room went silent for a second. Then someone laughed. "Study what?" another officer asked. 7 weak ships. They did not threaten us. They did not fire. They did not defend. They ran. Viral looked at the hologram again. "No," he said quietly. "They observed." But his words were ignored. The Supreme Commander stood tall. "Humanity hides behind small numbers. They do not understand power. Tomorrow, we will show them." The council roared in agreement. The meeting ended. The hologram faded. But far away, in the darkness of space, the 7 Terran scout ships continued their slow retreat. Inside one of the ships, a human officer stood before a console. He was calm. No fear showed on his face. A young crew member looked at him. "Sir, they think we are weak." The officer allowed a small smile. "That was the point," he said. The scout ships transmitted their full report. Enemy fleet size. Weapon strength. Shield frequency. Command structure. Response time. Every detail. The data shot across space at the speed of light. Back in Scifi space, the alien fleet celebrated their coming victory. They sharpened weapons. They prepared invasion routes. They believed humanity had shown its true strength. 7 small ships. Nothing more. But deep in Terran-controlled space, far beyond the border, something else received the scout report. Something large. Something old. Something silent. A massive shadow rested near a distant star. Its engines were dark. Its hull was scarred from past battles. Lights slowly turned on across its surface. One by one. Like a giant waking from sleep. Inside that ship, a single message appeared on the main screen. Scout contact complete. Threat confirmed. A human captain stood before the display. He read the report carefully. He did not smile. He did not laugh. He simply gave one order. Prepare the ship. In Scifi space, the aliens celebrated. They mocked the Terran scouts. They believed they had seen all of humanity's power. But they had only seen the beginning. And in the quiet darkness between the stars, something far greater had just begun to move. The Scifi fleet moved at dawn cycle. Massive war cruisers powered up one by one. Blue energy rolled across their hulls. Heavy cannons rotated into position. Carrier ships released waves of fighters that formed perfect attack lines. The aliens were confident. They had numbers. They had size. They had pride. In the command tower of the flagship, the Supreme Commander watched the fleet assemble. His voice echoed through the bridge. Today, we end Terran presence near our border. Cheers answered him. But Commander Viral stood near the rear of the bridge, studying the last transmission from the Terran scouts. He replayed the short message again. Message received. No fear. No anger. No threat. Just calm. He turned to a data officer. Pull Terran combat history. All known records. The officer hesitated. Sir, why? Just do it. Moments later, ancient battle footage filled Viral's screen. Terran fleets were strange. They rarely attacked first. They rarely showed full strength at the beginning. They observed. They measured. They responded only after full assessment. And when they responded, they did not hold back. Viral's eyes darkened. These scouts were not defending, he whispered. They were studying us. On the main deck, the Supreme Commander gave the final order. Advance. The fleet surged forward, engines burning bright. In deep space, the Terran scouts were already far away. They entered hyperspace one by one, disappearing without a trace. Back in Terran territory, the scout data arrived at a classified military outpost orbiting a quiet red star. It was not a large station. It did not look impressive. But it was connected to something far more dangerous. Inside a secure chamber, senior Terran officers studied the alien fleet information. Fleet size, overwhelming. Weapon output, high. Shield capacity, advanced. Command structure, centralized. One officer leaned back slowly. They're proud, she said. Too proud. Another nodded. They think numbers win wars. Silence filled the room. Then a hologram activated in the center. It showed a single Terran warship. It was massive. Much larger than the scout vessels. Its hull was layered with heavy armor plates. Engine cores glowed a deep orange. Weapon systems were hidden beneath reinforced sections. The name of the ship appeared slowly. TSV Resolute. An old warship. But not outdated. Upgraded. Refined. Deadly. The Terran High Command spoke with quiet authority. Deploy the Resolute. No dramatic speech. No anger. Just decision. Across space, near a distant gas giant, the Resolute floated in silence. It had been inactive for months. Waiting. Watching. Inside the main bridge, Captain Elias Ward stood tall. His hair showed slight gray at the edges. His face was calm but sharp. A communications officer turned to him. "Sir." Scout report confirmed. Scifi fleet advancing. The captain read the numbers. He did not react at first. "Estimated arrival time?" he asked. 32 standard hours. Ward nodded once. "They believe we're weak," the officer beside him said quietly. Ward finally allowed a faint smile. "Let them." He stepped forward and looked at the stars beyond the bridge window. "Power up main engines." Deep within the ship, reactors began to hum. Energy flowed through ancient systems upgraded with modern technology. Shield arrays activated. Weapons came online silently. Outside, orange engine light grew brighter. The ship did not rush. It did not panic. It simply turned toward the border. Back in Scifi space, the alien fleet continued its advance. Celebration still filled their communications channels. Terrans will fall quickly. They send scouts, not soldiers. They are afraid of our numbers. Commander Viral finally spoke openly on the bridge. "We should slow our advance. Gather more intelligence." The Supreme Commander turned sharply. "Are you afraid of 7 ships?" "No," Viral answered. "I am cautious of what they report to." The room fell silent. Then the Supreme Commander laughed loudly. "Humans hide behind tricks. We fight with strength." He turned to navigation. Full speed. The fleet accelerated. Viral looked back at his data screen. Something felt wrong. Terrans did not act without reason. They did not retreat without purpose. And they never sent scouts without having something stronger behind them. Far away, in the darkness between systems, the TSV Resolute entered hyperspace. Space bent around it. Stars stretched into lines. The massive warship vanished into the fold of space. It was not rushing. It was not afraid. It was answering. Back on the Scifi flagship, long-range sensors flickered for a brief second. An officer frowned. Minor spatial disturbance detected. The Supreme Commander waved it off. Natural fluctuation. Continue advance. But Commander Viral stared at the readings. It was not natural. T was controlled. Something had just moved. Something large. Something deliberate. He whispered to himself. They laughed at the scouts. And somewhere in the vast dark of space, the Resolute moved closer. Not as a fleet. Not as an army. Just one ship. And it was enough. The Scifi fleet crossed the outer border of Terran space without resistance. No mines. No defense stations. No ambush. Just silence. That silence made Commander Viral more uneasy. "It is too empty," he said quietly. The Supreme Commander stood tall on the bridge, staring at the endless black ahead. "They are afraid. They hide." The fleet pushed deeper. Cruisers formed attack lines. Fighters spread out like sharp wings. Heavy cannons powered up, ready to fire at the first sign of movement. Then the sensors flickered. Just for a second. A navigation officer leaned forward. "Reading a gravitational shift." "Explain," the Supreme Commander ordered. "It's localized. Artificial." The bridge lights dimmed slightly as space itself seemed to tighten. Far ahead, the stars began to bend. Not explode. Not collapse. Bend. As if something massive was forcing its way through reality. Fighters slowed. Cruisers adjusted shields. Then space tore open. Not with fire. Not with sound. But with pressure. A single warship emerged. Slowly. Calmly. Deliberately. It did not rush out like a predator. It stepped into space like it owned it. The TSV Resolute. Its hull was dark steel with deep battle scars. Heavy armor plates overlapped like scales. Long weapon arrays rested beneath reinforced sections, hidden but active. Its engines burned deep orange, brighter than any Zarithi cruiser. The alien fleet went silent. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one commander laughed nervously. One ship. The Supreme Commander straightened. This is their defense. But the sensor officer's voice shook. Energy readings rising. How high? Viral asked sharply. Higher than any recorded Terran vessel. The Resolute did not fire. It did not speak. It simply drifted forward, directly between the Zarithi fleet and Terran space. Like a wall. A communications signal came through. Clear. Direct. This is Terran Warship Resolute. You have crossed into protected space. Withdraw immediately. The message was calm. No anger. No shouting. Just fact. The Supreme Commander sneered. One ship does not command a fleet. He turned to weapons control. Target it. Dozens of targeting systems locked onto the Resolute. Missile bays opened. Cannons charged. The Terran ship did not move. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Ward stood steady. Enemy targeting confirmed, his officer reported. Shields? Ward asked. Stable. He nodded once. Hold position. Back in the Zarithi flagship, Commander Viral's breathing slowed. This is wrong, he said. The Supreme Commander ignored him. Fire. A storm of blue energy blasts and guided missiles surged toward the lone Terran ship. The attack lit up space like a second sun. Explosions swallowed the Resolute. For several seconds, nothing could be seen. Alien ships cheered. But Viral did not. The smoke cleared. The Resolute was still there. Its shields glowed softly, barely disturbed. Not cracked. Not flickering. Untouched. Silence filled the Zarithi fleet. Sensor alarms began to sound. Shield integrity unchanged, the officer whispered. The Resolute slowly powered up. Its hull sections shifted slightly. Panels opened. Weapon systems revealed themselves. Long rail cannons aligned forward. Energy conduits glowed brighter. Captain Ward gave one quiet command. Return fire. The Resolute fired once. A single beam of concentrated light crossed space instantly. One Zarithi destroyer vanished. Not damaged. Not broken. Gone. Its signature disappeared from sensors completely. Shock spread across the alien fleet. That ship is gone, an officer stammered. The Supreme Commander's claws tightened on his chair. Impossible. The Resolute adjusted its aim slightly. It did not rush. It did not panic. It selected targets carefully. Like a surgeon. Another shot. Another destroyer disabled. Engines cut. Weapons offline. Not destroyed. Neutralized. Commander Viral stared at the massive Terran ship. This was not a defense force, he whispered. The Supreme Commander's voice finally lowered. What is it then? Viral answered without looking away. It is the answer to the scouts. On the Resolute's bridge, Captain Ward watched calmly as the alien formation began to break. They laughed, a young Terran officer said quietly. Ward nodded once. Yes. Outside, the massive warship drifted forward again. Not chasing. Not retreating. Just advancing with steady power. The Zarithi fleet, once loud and proud, now fell silent. They had expected fear. They had expected weakness. They had expected numbers. They did not expect one ship to change everything. And the battle had only just begun. The Scifi fleet no longer looked proud. Their perfect formation was breaking apart. Ships drifted slightly out of position. Fighters pulled back closer to their carriers. Communication channels filled with confused voices. How did one ship survive that? What kind of shields are those? That destroyer is completely gone. On the bridge of the flagship, the Supreme Commander's confidence began to crack. His claws gripped the edge of his command platform. "Regroup," he shouted. "Focus fire. Overwhelm it." But this was not a normal enemy. The TSV Resolute did not rush forward like a wild predator. It moved slowly. Controlled. Each action measured. On the Terran bridge, Captain Ward stood with his hands behind his back. His face was calm, almost cold. "Target their command relays," he said. "Yes, sir." The Resolute adjusted its aim, not at the biggest ships, not at the loudest ones, but at the smaller support vessels floating behind the fleet. One precise shot. A communication ship exploded in silence. Suddenly, half the Scifi fleet lost connection to Central Command. Panic spread faster than any weapon. Signal failure. We've lost tactical link. Who is in charge now? The alien formation fractured even more. Commander Viral watched in horror. "It's not destroying us randomly," he said. "It's dismantling us." Another Terran beam flashed. This time, it struck a carrier's engine array. The massive alien vessel spun helplessly, engines dead but hull intact. The message was clear. The Resolute could destroy them. But it was choosing not to. It was proving a point. Back on the flagship, the Supreme Commander growled. "Launch all fighters. Swarm it." Hundreds of small Scifi fighters surged forward like a wave of insects. They fired rapid bursts of energy. The sky filled with light. On the Terran ship, shield readings flickered slightly, but held strong. "Activate point defense," Ward ordered calmly. Small automated turrets unfolded along the Resolute's hull. Thousands of micro-rounds fired in controlled bursts. Alien fighters exploded one by one. Not wildly. Not in chaos. But in clean, accurate lines. The Terran ship did not look angry. It looked disciplined. Within minutes, the fighter swarm was broken. The space between fleets filled with drifting wreckage. Commander Viral stepped closer to the Supreme Commander. "We must retreat," he said firmly. The Supreme Commander hesitated. Retreat was not in Scifi tradition. But neither was this kind of defeat. Another Terran shot struck the flagship's forward shields. The impact shook the bridge. Warning lights flashed. Shields dropped to 70%. Gasps filled the room. "That was a warning shot," Viral whispered. As if to confirm his words, a new Terran message appeared across every Scifi screen. "You crossed our border. You mocked our scouts. We are showing restraint." Restraint. The word felt heavier than any weapon. The Supreme Commander's breathing slowed. "If this is restraint," one officer whispered, "what is full power?" The Resolute moved closer now. Still slow. Still steady. Its massive hull blocked the stars behind it. It did not chase the retreating ships. It did not fire wildly. It only targeted vessels that tried to regroup. Each time a Scifi cruiser attempted a counterattack, the Resolute disabled it within seconds. Like a teacher correcting mistakes. The Supreme Commander finally lowered his head. "Order full retreat," he said quietly. The words felt bitter. Navigation officers scrambled. The fleet began turning away, disorganized and damaged. The Resolute did not pursue aggressively. It followed just far enough to ensure the retreat was real. On the Terran bridge, a young officer spoke softly. "They're running." Captain Ward nodded. "They learned." Outside, the battlefield drifted into silence. Broken Scifi ships floated powerless. Others limped away toward their own territory. The once proud invasion force was shattered by a single Terran warship. Commander Viral looked back one last time at the Resolute. He no longer saw just a ship. He saw a message. Humanity had not needed numbers. Humanity had needed patience. And patience had just defeated pride. As the damaged fleet escaped into hyperspace, the Resolute powered down its weapons slightly. But it did not turn away yet. It remained there, watching. Guarding. Waiting. Because this was not just about winning a battle. It was about changing how the galaxy saw Terrans forever. And the lesson was not over yet. The battlefield was quiet. Broken Scifi ships drifted in silence. Damaged cruisers limped toward hyperspace lanes. Small rescue craft moved between wrecks, collecting survivors. The invasion had ended. Not with a long war. Not with a massive fleet. But with one Terran warship. The TSV Resolute remained where it was, floating between Terran space and the retreating enemy. It did not celebrate. It did not chase. It simply stood guard. On the bridge, Captain Elias Ward watched the last Scifi ship enter hyperspace. "Confirm full retreat," he said. "Yes, sir." "No hostile signatures remain in our sector." Ward nodded slowly. "Open wide transmission channel." Across the damaged Scifi fleet, communication screens activated again. The Resolute appeared on every display. The Terran captain stood calm and steady. His voice was firm but controlled. "You crossed our border without cause." Silence filled the alien bridges. "You mocked our scouts." Several Scifi officers lowered their eyes. "You believed small numbers meant weakness." The Terran captain paused. "Humanity does not begin with force. We begin with patience." The camera shifted slightly, revealing the massive interior of the Terran bridge, orderly, disciplined, focused. "We sent scouts to understand you. You answered with pride." Another pause. This was restraint. The word echoed across alien ships like a warning. "If you return in peace, we will meet you in peace. If you return in war." The captain did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He simply finished the sentence. "We will not show restraint again." The transmission ended. No dramatic music. No shouting. Just silence. On the Scifi flagship, the Supreme Commander stood motionless. His fleet was damaged. His pride was wounded. And his certainty was gone. Commander Viral stepped forward quietly. "They did not destroy us when they could have," he said. The Supreme Commander did not answer. Viral continued. "They wanted us to understand." Slowly, the Supreme Commander turned toward the stars beyond the viewport. "For generations," he said softly, "we measured strength by size." He looked down at the battle damage reports. "Today we learned something different." Back in Terran space, the Resolute finally turned away from the border. Its engines glowed brighter for a moment. Then it began its slow journey home. Inside the ship, no one cheered. No one celebrated. The crew returned to normal duties as if nothing special had happened. Because for them, this was not glory. It was responsibility. A young officer approached Captain Ward. "Sir, do you think they'll come back?" Ward looked at the stars for a long moment. "Not like this," he said. The officer hesitated. "Why only send one ship?" Ward allowed a faint smile. "Because one was enough." The Resolute entered hyperspace and vanished. Back in Scifi territory, emergency councils were called. Military leaders gathered again in the Grand Council chamber. But this time, there was no laughter. No mocking. No prideful speeches. Only quiet discussion. Commander Viral stood before the council and spoke clearly. We misjudged them. Some leaders shifted uncomfortably. We saw small scouts and thought we saw weakness. He activated a hologram of the Resolute. The massive Terran ship rotated slowly in blue light. That was not their strength, Viral said. That was their response. The chamber remained silent. Humanity hides power behind patience, he continued. They do not show their full hand until necessary. One elder council member finally spoke. What do you recommend? Viral answered without hesitation. We send diplomats. The words felt strange in the war chamber. But no one argued. Far across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. One Terran warship had stopped an invasion fleet. Not through rage. Not through destruction. But through control. Through discipline. Through quiet strength. Other species began to whisper a new truth. Do not judge Terrans by their scouts. Do not measure them by numbers. And never mistake patience for weakness. In the quiet of deep space, the border between Scifi and Terran territory remained calm. No ships moved there now. No weapons fired. Only stars shone in silence. And somewhere in that darkness, the lesson remained clear. They mocked the Terran scouts. But one human warship changed everything.